It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and we're talking this Wellness Wednesday about seeming obsessed. Yeah, this is something February was a rough month. Rough ass month. And part of it was because some people just, it wasn't even a hint. It was they weren't respecting no or stop. Or they were trying to cut corners on a boundary or a request. And this is happening too often to not be a trend. 4 in 2 weeks is not an isolated incident. And what I'm talking about is someone who bombards you with incredibly emotional communications and doesn't seem to be able to stop, even though it's not doing them any good. You watch a person in a panic cycle between a fawn response and a fight response. And then they start saying things that aren't, I don't care. Okay, if you didn't care, then you wouldn't have sent me 20 responses today. And then when you block them on one service, they contact you on another to start it up again, often angry that you blocked them. Now, again, this is too common to be just a series of isolated incidents. What is going on here? Well, okay, one, it's not helping someone not seem obsessed. And obsessed scares people. When someone can't regulate, they seem unpredictable and people just want to get away from them because they don't know what they're going to do. And I'm not being judgmental here. I'm telling you what I tell myself as motivation to stay regulated with trauma, because God, another thing this month that has just been a theme is your trauma is coloring your judgment. Your stress is coloring your judgment. Don't take it out on me. When I had complaints that, in my opinion, were not that. Even if you think it, if someone is that stressed out or traumatized, they're not in a place to hear that. If you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK if you want to work on things like this. There's a bunch of things that could be happening with this type of won't let it go, holy shit, obsessed. One is anger. One is just anger that is not, someone isn't healthily feeling their anger. They are denying how angry they are, or they are justifying. My chair just broke. Awesome. They are justifying how angry they are instead of recognizing that healthy anger ebbs in about 20 minutes. If you are still raging after hours, that's something to seek some help with. That's not just not good for your socializing. It's not good for you on a health level. You shouldn't be walking around raging for sustained periods of time. It could be something is medically wrong. So that's unnerving to someone, a person who can't seem, you can be angry and still in control. When a person seems out of control, when they won't stop saying things they've been told are hurtful, when they won't stop doing things that are unproductive, the best thing, the healthy thing for someone to do is walk away. And ending the conversation, blocking, is a form of walking away. Now, what do you do if you're upset? And, okay, well, I think they got me wrong. All right, sending them a nastygram on a fourth social media service that they forgot to block you on when they've made it clear they don't want to talk to you on the other three, that's not going to make you seem more hinged. That's just honest. Like, that's not being mean. That's just a fact. And there's a couple things First of all, give it a few. If you've discovered they haven't blocked you on one thing, wait until you are calmer. No, really calmer. This is where feeling your feelings is important. You have to be regulated and not make accusations in your approach. Seriously, it is possible. If all you want to do is be aggressive, I'm not being aggressive, I'm defending themselves. No, if you start the conversation, that is not a defense. You are the aggressor. If you start it, you're the aggressor. One exception to that is if someone just makes a social media post, they're stating their opinion, you don't have to respond. If you respond there aggressively, you are starting a conflict. People have the right to make comments on their own social media. If there's something that I don't agree with, I don't have to respond. But I am aware when I am being aggressive on social media. And I own I am being aggressive when I am. If somebody's already blocked you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, raging at them on threads is not a great plan. And if you think it's a great plan at the time, this means you're not in a place to talk about this productively yet. And that's okay. Now, giving it a bit does not mean you can just start up again like it never happened. It doesn't, some things to avoid. Somebody tells you, seek help. Coming back in a few weeks and saying, I'm all better now, it's bullshit. Therapy on serious issues takes about 6 months to really get into the core of it. After a few weeks, you may feel better because you're validated and you've gotten someone to talk to. But the actual difficult work doesn't really kick in. Sometimes you can get a few things rearranged and in order within a few weeks, but the tough going really starts at 6 months. And if you really want to show somebody you're better, saying I'm better now is the absolute worst way to do it. The best thing to say to the person is, this is where I see I was going wrong, or this is what I have learned. And what I have been getting from people is, I did everything you told me to. And my default response is, if you did it for me, you did it for the wrong reasons, and it's not going to stick. Because if you're only making conditional changes to salvage a toxic friendship, that's not helping anybody. That is, when you really look at it, just a manipulation. Because it's all, well, if this person keeps being nice to me, then it was worth it. If they're not nice to me, fuck you, I didn't mean any of it. I'm going to just revert. It's coming from the place of a wounded child. It is a trauma response, not an adult who is feeling and owning their feelings. And I'm sure some people are going to object to that, but it's true. You have to take a good hard look at yourself and come at things from a place of accountability instead of blame. And coming at things from a place of accountability instead of blame also means not blaming others. So you made me, I only did this because of you. Oh my God. No. That's not the place. If you really do want to salvage a relationship, first of all, don't ignore warnings. If somebody blocks you, that's a warning. And some people, I know, in fact, of not just me, but other situations where someone deliberately blocks on social media, but leaves email open. And that's because people tend to, impulse tweet or impulse messenger or send Instagram DMs or something like that. But email, I don't know. There's a more conscious element to most people. I've had people go off on email on me recently, and it's been some of the emails I have gotten I can't actually make any sense of because it's referencing things and I'm not grasping the reference. I don't know what they're talking about. And the entire message is contingent on this one thing that I don't. And it's funny how many times when I bother to write somebody back and go, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. They, yes, you do. Don't lie. It's like, why would I lie about that? That doesn't make any sense. But once you get into compulsive behaviors, it is hard. And a lot of people don't like looking under the rock of these compulsive, this fear of abandonment behavior. And I used to struggle with this. And I eventually realized that sometimes you are abandoned. It's not an indication of your self-worth. Now, I understand there are certain conditions like borderline personality disorder that make handling abandonment extra difficult. But, trauma is one of those. So I can speak from this. Sometimes you are going to be abandoned. Sometimes people don't want to talk to you. The number of times I open up social media to look up an actor I really like or an artist I really like or a writer I really like, and they've blocked me because they use a list. It hurts, right? But I accept it. I don't try to find a way around the block. They made a choice. I accept that choice. Now, I offered this particular advice very cautiously because it involving other people, to ask the person to unblock you. Here's the thing about that. That is someone doing you a huge favor. And if they do it, don't embarrass them, because the person will never trust them vouching for someone again if you go off on them again. General rule of thumb, you have to be able to accept the boundaries someone is setting. I've noticed a lot of people so convinced there's nothing they can do. They will rant and rant and rant. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I've done everything. There's nothing I can do. You're just gonna... That is externalized catastrophizing. As long as a person is continuing to talk to you, there's hope. So saying, there's nothing I can do, I can't fix this, is pointless. There's obviously something that will satisfy the other person because they're continuing to talk to you. Now, when you're so busy spinning, fighting with your own internal voice, you'll often miss communications from someone saying, this is what you can do. And the number of people I've noticed go, yes, okay, I'll do that. And then they don't. A lot of that stuff is something that you can start immediately. And this is very, very, very important when it comes to fixing things. Okay? When someone says, for instance, I need you to respect boundaries. Don't just go, yeah, I can do that. Go, I can do that. Can you give me an example of a boundary I'm not aware of or I'm missing? And then if someone tells you anything after that, make sure you listen to something other than the screaming in your own head. Because you only get one shot here a lot of the time. Now, this is something that can make a conversation go very, very good or very, very terribly, because most people do not expect perfection here. They expect to see improvements. So if they say, for instance, you don't respect my time. You get me in a conversation, you get me on a call, and I keep saying, I have to go for 20 minutes, and you don't. Don't say, no, I don't. Don't go into a lengthy explanation of why you don't respect someone's time or why you didn't respect I have to go. You may think you respect your time, but if somebody's saying I have to go and you keep them on for 20 minutes, no, you're not. You're just not. Okay. Listen, acknowledge you did it. Yeah, you're right. You can have a brief, I was lonely or I panicked or something like that. But always reassert, yeah, that was not, I need to get better at that. Lengthy explanations do not help. They muddle your message. And I understand validating. Validating is this huge missed step in conflicts. And people think it's stupid. People think it's counterintuitive. But seriously, validation not only takes down the temperature, but it is huge for healing. And a lot of people do the opposite. They actively invalidate it. That's stupid. Or you're too sensitive. Or I've actually had people say, that's not what it's, I've said, that's not what it's about for me. I understand why you would be dismissive if that's what this issue was about for me, but it's not. Well, it should be. Should is one of those words. You have to be so careful with should. Stopping yourself every time should comes out of you is such an easy check against toxicity, because you don't get to determine what another person should care about or should want or should do. All you can talk about is what you will accept. And sometimes should is appropriate. Children should grow up safe. And a lot of the time, the people I work with didn't, and assuring them that is not them. That's fair. But someone should care? No, you can't force someone to care. You can't force someone to care. You can't force someone to pay attention to you. You can't blackmail or cajole or manipulate someone into caring. You just can't. And it is hard to really want someone's attention, really want someone's understanding and not get it. Keep in mind, however, that when you're spinning that way, you are being that person. You are being that person that doesn't give a shit about the other person because you're so caught up in your own mess. And this is where you're at, but I do care. You can't be that at war with yourself and have any space for anyone else. Active listening is a mode. Going into a place where you are not judging, you are understanding and accepting. You don't have to agree. But things go much better when you've actually understood the other person's perspective. That person feels more cared about when they see that you understand. And a lot of people don't actually make sure they understand before they try to get ahead of a conversation. And that's trying to mind read. And it's amazing how many people I point out that they're mind reading. No, I'm not. If someone's giving you that, don't weaponize accusations of mind reading, please. But when someone's saying, no, that's not what it's about for me, believe them. Give them, okay, what is it about for you? And accept what they say. People, until you start recognizing that it actually is better to give early in a conversation instead of demanding to receive, because people are so neglected. They're so panicked. They think they have to force people to care. one guy who was really, really bad for this was like, I have to fight. I have to fight. I have to fight. Okay, but you're fighting. And conflict is conflict, even if you think it's a noble battle. And someone doesn't want to be around someone who is in fight mode. Because think of what you're injecting into a conversation. I have to fight. I have to fight. I have to fight against accusations. I have to fight. What? Like, here's, okay, you're fighting me. And I'm not interested in having a fight. So I'm going to go away now. These things matter. Because it doesn't take much to go, why do you think that? Why did you feel that? What do you understand I just told you? Let's make sure we're on the same page here. And it's very important that you understand what the other person's issue is. And the number of conversations I've had where I understand where you're coming from. No, you don't. Well, you feel treated unfairly because, and then I'll give details, and there'll be this silence because, yeah, that was it. And it's strange because they don't want to admit that they were hurt because they feel wronged. They feel aggrieved. And they don't necessarily entirely, first, they don't know how to self-soothe. They do, and that's a, telling yourself it's okay, it's going to be okay is a learned skill. And if you weren't nurtured as a child, you didn't learn it by mimicry. You know, you didn't get the example that you can work off of. But it is possible to learn as an adult. I did. But they're almost angry that you did understand where they were coming from. And I admit I don't understand that one entirely yet. I hear, well, that's not all it is. And it's like, well, it's part of it, right? I can only deal with one thing at a time. It's part of it. Well, yes, but it's not all of it. It's like, this is, I guess it's desperation to be heard because someone has felt unheard their entire life. And as someone who feels unheard myself a lot of the time, you really have to watch the false positives. You have to watch for when you think you're not being heard, but you actually are. And a good check for that is, what do you understand this is about for me? Give the person an opportunity to show they did hear you. You don't have to assume anything. And the two big successful conflict skills, healthy conflict skills, are basically don't make assumptions and don't mind read. And they're essentially the same thing. But assumptions can be about something other than what somebody's thinking. Mind reading is a very specific category of assumption based on fear. And so it's a really hard one to unlearn. And that's where the resilience comes in, because it's the, I may get attacked if I say this, if I give someone an opportunity, if I ask a question, I have to be prepared to hear both a positive and a negative response. If I'm not prepared to hear, yes, that's it, or no, that's not, well, then I'm being manipulative. I'm not actually asking a question. I'm making a demand. And that's not fair to the other person. But it's also, okay, so this might sting, or I am hurt right now. And this is what I'm talking about, feeling your feelings. Because if you don't name and feel your feelings, they control you. Because the reason you feel unheard is your feelings are not being treated as valid. And because your feelings were not treated as valid for so long, you're self-invalidating now. And the problem with that, reformed self-invalidator here, when someone does actually hear you, you don't catch it because you're so lost in this sea of inner conflict and old ghosts that all you're doing is taking out the past on the person in front of you in the present. And I have seen, it's hard to say if someone's a good person at that point because they're not trustworthy and they're unpredictable. I think it's beyond being a good person or being a bad person. There's this wild animal element there And so it's almost not important if they're a good person or a bad person. All that matters is that they will hurt you and they're not capable of caring because they're too caught up in their own war. And, you know, you don't have to think somebody's a bad person to realize that they hurt you again and again and again and don't show enough care and consideration. And stalking someone, I know that's a very strong word, but when somebody's blocked you 3 different places and you go after them trying to continue the fight on the 4th, you're indicating that the fight is more important than the friendship. And if you do that, I mean, what I'm seeing there in a lot of cases is that they feel rejected. They think it's hopeless. There's no way back from this. So I'm just going to blow it all up. I'm going to get angry because, well, bridges burn. So might as well throw gasoline on the fire, make this big bonfire, because at least I'll vent some things. And the problem with that is that you tend not to feel good about that later. You tend to feel guilty for that. You tend to regret it. And the thing about hope is you can't make changes without believing it's possible. And if you're telling yourself it's hopeless, there's nothing I can do, then you're going to give yourself the excuse to do the self-destructive thing in the short term and be consumed by guilt in the longer term, instead of going, I feel guilty every time I do this later on, so I'm not going to do it this time. I'm just going to go, all right, do it another way. You know, my go-to is when I'm feeling really defensive and I want to say something I'm probably going to regret. I ask questions until I trust myself to respond. Now, if somebody's coming at me like a ton of bricks and pushing me into overwhelm, I do shut it down. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not listening to you right now. I can't take in any more information. I'm sorry. I want to, but I just can't right now. The inside of my brain is screaming and I am not hearing you. But do you hear how much of that was, I am accountable for this. This is something that's happening within me. I am not putting the responsibility for that state on the other person. I'm asking them to help me with it. And if they do, awesome, trustworthy person. If they don't, not so much. So, you know, it doesn't, okay, I shouldn't say it doesn't feel good to get blocked. I kind of go, hey, when certain people block me. But I mean, when somebody you like blocks you, it doesn't feel good. But reminding them of the reasons they blocked you, even if you think it's justified, isn't very productive, and therefore it's irrational. And we're all irrational sometimes. Our feelings happen faster than our thoughts. And that's why in a text-based medium, or when you have to initiate a call, there's no excuse to react impulsively. Work on that impulse control. Find ways to take breaths before you take that leap, because it's better to take a bit, take 20 and calm down before continuing than to continue to approach things in an out of control, dysregulated, not really feeling your feeling state. You will get better outcomes, trust me. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, who might be working through issues just like this. We need 6 every week to give everybody the services we need. We haven't been making that lately, but I've been doing a few anyway, so I've been losing money. Coffee.com/LeannaK, because this does matter. Your support is invaluable. Thanks for watching. Well, and be well.